Hey everyone, today I'm going to be reviewing one of my favorite anime series of all time here. Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. So I've talked about my other two favorite animes. If I had to rank this one within my top three, I would rank it third of the bunch. Not that I like it any less than the other two, it's just, it's still one of my absolute favorites. First being, I've reviewed them before, Blue Gender, and then Boogie Pop Phantom. And then now this one. This is what I'll be talking about today. So this is, you may have heard of this one before. This one is very, very popular. It is probably the most popular one that I have watched, to be honest with you. There are 2 seasons of Standalone Complex. There is a manga, which was very popular. There were multiple movies. And there was actually a real life movie based on the initial movie. And then the manga as well. So we'll be talking about that. And the first season, because there are 2 seasons of this. And they're not connected. They're different storylines. This season, we will talk about the story in just a moment. But this one consists of, they both consist of 26 episodes. But the storyline revolves around the Laughing Man. Let me show you the logo of that. You may have seen it before. Who knows? This is the Laughing Man logo, and it says, "I thought what I'd do was I'd pretend I was one of those deaf mutes." Which apparently is a quote from The Catcher in the Rye, which is pretty much what some of the things end up discussing in the actual anime. So, this is like the only anime that's like as old as it is. It's not super old, but it is in widescreen. Not many animes around that time were in widescreen, so that's interesting. And even, let me tell you this: the game, I have the first game here. I have all my media here. This is the first game. I just recently played it over on Asphodel Gaming. If you want to check out the first game, I just finished playing this. Even this has a widescreen option in it, which is interesting as well. And there's also 2 other games that I own, PS2, PSP. This was my first shooter for the PlayStation 2. Both of these are based on the Standalone Complex anime. This one is more based on the movie, but yeah, I absolutely love it as well. And yeah, it's just really good. And I really like the voice acting in it. The voice acting in the anime is really good, especially with Mary Elizabeth McGlynn as the Major. She's the one who sings a lot of the Silent Hill themes, if you're familiar with those. Silent Hill 3, I believe, was the first one that actually has vocals. So the opening theme song for Silent Hill 3, and then the other Silent Hill tracks in that game and in other future games as well in Silent Hill. I also absolutely love the music. I have all the soundtracks. This music was composed by Yoko Kanno, which is probably one of my top favorite Japanese music composers. So here is the first soundtrack here. Here's the second one. This one's mostly for the second gig. I think there may be a few songs that are from the first season. I don't really know, but it's mostly the second gig. Same with this one. I think this one's mostly the second gig as well, which is the second season is what they call it. The Tashkoma album, Be Human. All of these are the official Japanese releases. The one for the PlayStation 2 game, and then the PSP game. And I have the movies as well, but I do not have those out because those are its own thing. Okay, so I guess favorite music, favorite track. So I guess we need to talk about exactly what the story is for this show. For the first season, unlike the second season, the first season is revolved around the Laughing Man, and there are 2 types of episodes: standalone episodes and complex episodes. The standalone episodes, as the name describes, are standalone. They are individual cases about what the group does, and then the complex episodes focuses on the Laughing Man. So as a bit of background about this show in general, if you've never read it, if you've never watched any of it at all, this, according to this, it takes place in the year 2030, so 10 years from now. And it's when humans and machine have merged together, essentially. There are people who have prosthetic bodies, people who are fully cyberized, and people with cyber brains. The cyber brain is essentially a human brain inside of a cyberized shell, and then that can be implanted into a fully cyborg body, or that can be implanted into a hybrid prosthetic human body, or even, a mostly human body but with cyberized parts. And this cyber brain allows you to connect to the net, which is their term for the internet, and you can connect, you can communicate with people, you can dive around into the net like a very virtual reality type of world. This is, highly advanced type of technology, and it's interesting because there's a lot of things in it that I think are not really too far off from the truth and even what's going on in the world today. The story of the Laughing Man, as I'm describing it to you here and what the motives are, it's going to sound a lot like something that's going on in the world right now, okay? It's going to be sounding very much like that. So there are, I believe, 13 standalone episodes, and there are 12 complex episodes, I believe. You know what? I should take a look at that real fast. Let's see. So, 14 standalone episodes, 12 complex episodes. I was incorrect there. Okay, so the standalone episodes, as I said, are standalone episodes, and they focus around Section 9, which is what the group is, with the Major, Bato, and then the other characters, Togusa, Ishikawa, Saito, Boma, and Pazu. Yeah, I think and then Aramaki is the chief. A lot of Japanese names, yeah, so it's a bit hard to understand if you're not too familiar with it. So Section 9 is an anti-crime unit, essentially, and they work pretty much in the dark. Think of it like the police, but they're not actually. They work more undercover, and they pretty much operate in secret for the most part. So that is the premise, and the standalone episodes follow individual cases of them, combating crime or terrorism or something of the sort. And remember now, this is in the future, so the type of crime and actions are not like what you see today. It's more cyberized, and it's more internet, like people hacking into other people's brains, hacking into databases via the net, and cases like that. And there is one case in particular that's just the most disturbing episode ever, where there is, I think there was even a warning on TV. There's a man who takes pleasure in cutting off women's skin in the shape of a t-shirt. And it's just so disgusting, it's so graphic, and the whole premise of it is that him and another member of Section 9, Bato, were part of an operation, and Bato was on the Japanese side, and this other man was on, I believe, the American side, and they were enemies, of course, and the CIA sent this man into this Japanese base here, and it was called Project Sunset, and they would kill people in inhumane and horrific ways in order for the enemies to lose their will to fight. So Bato was on the receiving end of that. He saw all these women who had their skin cut off, and essentially that's what happened. Years go by, and then Bato is working for a different group here, and this the CIA is pretty much wants this guy killed who was slicing off people's skin, but he wanted it to look like an accident by Bato, so that's why they had him come into contact with Bato. So Bato had a lot of anger, but at the end of the day, he did not end up killing them. But that's just the most disturbing episode. So yeah, it's pretty nasty. Now, before I begin the actual story of this as well, you can actually watch the entire season, both seasons, on Adult Swim's website. Here is Adult Swim, Ghost in the Shell. There it is, Adult Swim. And all the episodes are here, including a brief summary, including season 2 as well. I believe all of those are free. I don't think you need a membership at all. So there you go. You can watch them all. So the story of the Laughing Man. Where does it take place? Well, it was the Laughing Man incident that occurred 6 years ago, I believe is what it says. Yes, 6 years prior. Okay, so what it was is it was a guy with that face that I showed you. He had kidnapped someone by the name of Serrano, who was the CEO of a company called Serrano Genomics, which makes micro machines. And he had blackmailed the company and other micro machine companies as well. We don't really know what the premise was initially, but that's the main background that you get. And 6 years ago, he went out into a news broadcast that was taking place outside. He held Serrano at gunpoint and threatened that he would kill him if he didn't tell the truth. That he had to tell the truth about something. Well, actually, let me just back up for a moment. These are the complex episodes, which are the Laughing Man episodes. And I'm not sure if you're aware that the term standalone complex, which also applies to this anime as well, it means that people are acting individually but for the same goal, is essentially what it means. So there's multiple people acting independently of one another, but they're doing a similar type of goal, as if they're doing a group effort, but they're individual. Anyway, back to the kidnapping. So Laughing Man kidnaps Serrano, and you see the live broadcast, but this Laughing Man is such an expert hacker. He hacked everyone's eyes, because everyone is pretty much, cyberized at that point. He hacks everyone's eyes so they can't see him. All they see is that smiley face with the text going around it. He hacks the camera, and no one knows what his true identity is. All you see is the blue coat. Well, that was the incident that was six years ago, and no one knows the identity of this, and everything seemed to have settled down past that point. Then suddenly, on episode 4 is when the Laughing Man episodes actually begin, and they are all, just kind of scattered about. There'll be a few episodes here, a few episodes there. Episode 4 is about interceptors, which are these implants that are put in people's eyes that are pretty much surveillance tools. Think of it like a contact that someone else can watch everything that you're doing, everything that you can see. And someone on the police force is investigating this Laughing Man incident, one of the investigation team, and he thinks that there's something connected with this and the Laughing Man. So that's when this man reaches out to Tokusa, which is one of the key members of the investigation of this Laughing Man incident as well. So he learns about the interceptors, and then suddenly, on a TV broadcast about, this interceptor incident, because what happened is that the police were using the interceptors on their staff in a way that was illegal. Because apparently it's not illegal to use it, but without proper disclosure or other types of agreements behind the scenes, which they did not do, it is illegal to actually do that. So during a press conference, the Superintendent General Dido, he is then threatened by another member of the police force who was hacked by the Laughing Man. Suddenly, right in the middle of the press conference, this police force guy is hijacked by the Laughing Man, and he says, "Tell the truth this time, or I will be forced to remove you from the stage." So, if he's not telling the truth about his ties to Serrano Genomics, this is what it all goes back to, so remember that, Serrano Genomics, then he will be killed. So during that course of those events there, we learned that there is someone by the name of Nanao A that is responsible for that the police think is the actual Laughing Man, okay? However, he's just a scapegoat. They're trying to cover up something. He is just the scapegoat. Even Nanao A thinks that he is the actual true Laughing Man. Here's where the standalone complex comes into play. On the day that the Superintendent General is giving a speech, a few days after the threaten on his life, there were a bunch of people who were all acting individually who were trying to assassinate the Superintendent General. And they all come from different walks of life. They're all different ages, different sexes. They're all independent of one another, but they're all acting as if they are the original Laughing Man, and they all claim to be the original Laughing Man, including this Nanao A guy, which sends out a virus, supposedly, that infected all these people into their brain. But it turned out that actually was not even the cause of it, apparently. So, after that incident happened, there was another member of the police force who ended up killing this Nanao A guy. And this is really interesting, because that same guy who ended up killing Nanao A, the scapegoat, was the same guy that Togusa was talking to about the interceptor incident, about the interceptors, learning more about the interceptors from the police investigation force. So, all that sort of thing, all that stuff happens, and then there's kind of a bit of a break, because there's nothing really else that is really discovered at the time. So that's like the introduction to the Laughing Man, and you learn more about him. And then suddenly there's an episode where Togusa has to investigate this this vocational aid center for these young kids, kind of like with autism. That's kind of what it seems like. And it's a Laughing Man episode, and you're watching it for the most part, and you don't know how it's connected to the Laughing Man whatsoever. And these kids suffer with cyberbrain closed shell syndrome, which is essentially, a cyberized version of autism, is what it seems like, okay? So, during the time there, Togusa meets a young boy who is completely silent. He doesn't talk. And his name is Aoi. A-O-I. Aoi. A little bit hard to pronounce, but he meets him, and a bunch of incidents happen, and he's completely silent. And then at the very end, Aoi it is a big complex there, but Aoi says to the other students, he actually talks, he says that he has to go away now because he thinks that his identity has been found out. And it later turned out to be that Togusa there was no record of this Aoi in the database after this incident, and Togusa has to draw by a memory of what he looked like. It's like, I remember what he looks like, but he ends up drawing the Laughing Man logo. And that is your indication that this young boy, Aoi, is the Laughing Man. So, many, many episodes go by, okay? By that point, it's probably 8 episodes or something, I think, or maybe a 6. Whatever the case is, there is a big break in the season. And suddenly it comes back. And Togusa's re-investigating this when a book from the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare is missing. And this book listed out the recipients of the Mirai vaccine. And this is the overall key point of the story. The Mirai vaccine. Now, the Mirai vaccine was to prevent cyberbrain sclerosis, which was caused by people who get their brains cyberized, and it causes a hardening of the brain, which will inevitably cause death. So the vaccine was used to help people who were suffering from this, or to prevent this from happening. It was a pretty rare disease, I believe, but there is still a chance it could happen, and anyone who has been cyberized could have a chance of it happening. So they could end up dying. So, after some of the incidents with this book come out, and here's where it gets really interesting, and here's how you can relate to the real life stuff that happened this year, okay? So, when this book is eventually found, it turned out that one of the people, well, actually, let me back up. This Mirai vaccine worked wonderfully, I should mention, okay? It was a very successful treatment for those suffering with cyberbrain sclerosis. However, it was denied by the Board of Health, and they would not approve it, and instead favored micromachine treatment, primarily micromachine treatment from Serrano Genomics, as I mentioned earlier. So you may start to see what is happening here. Micromachines did not really show any sort of benefit when it came to cyberbrain sclerosis, but the vaccine did. But there was more money with micromachines because it was an up-and-coming sort of treatment for all sorts of things. But it did not show any sort of treatment for cyberbrain sclerosis. The vaccine did. Does that sound familiar to what happened this year? There's not much money in the vaccine, but there's this other treatment that doesn't work that we're going to make a bunch of money from. That sounds like something that happened earlier this year, 2020, about a drug that was supposed to help with this virus, but, people were saying, no, you can't do that. It's dangerous. Instead, we're going to ban it, and we're going to improve this other drug, which has no benefit at all. Very, very, very similar to that. Pretty much exactly the same. But anyway, here's also the type of hypocritical nature of, the world and the people. In that book that listed the recipients of this Mirai vaccine was someone by the name of Ima Carus, which is, he oversaw the board that denied the Mirai vaccine. Yet he's dependent on it. He's taking the vaccine to prevent cyberbrain sclerosis, and he's dependent on that vaccine. But he disapproved it, and he's using it. Very, very hypocritical. Again, that's just how it is. Anyway, the bunch of craziness happens there. Section 9 was ordered to capture Ima Carus, but he ends up dying due to the Drug Enforcement Administration. The narc squad came and killed him, and they also tried to kill some of the other members of Section 9 as well, and including the Major, the main character here, the Major. Oh look, there she is. She's on everything, including trying to kill her when she had to do a body swap. Okay, she had to do a body swap because her body was injured, so a member of the narc squad tried to kill her doing that. During this moment, however, the Laughing Man comes in to the scene and gives her all of his memories. At that point, the Laughing Man exits the stage. His role is now over. It's up to the Major and Section 9 to bring out the truth of what is actually happening with Serrano Genomics and the whole micromachine incident there, and how that was not an effective treatment. Okay. Let me take a sip. We're almost done. Hopefully you're following along. This is very complex stuff. Okay, so what ends up happening then is Well, actually, let me first back up. I mentioned earlier that the Laughing Man was known for his excellent hacking skills, kidnapping Serrano, and then blackmailing micro machine companies. The third one, blackmailing micro machine companies, was one that he said he was not responsible for, and that's going to get we are going to get into that more, because that's when things kind of shift gears and you begin to know the truth of what happened during this crime. But anyway, with the memories that the Major now has from the Laughing Man, she knows what to do in order for Serrano to tell the truth. So she actually reenacts the Laughing Man incident from many years ago. Not to the point of going out in public and having him at gunpoint, but rather kidnapping him from his home with, her excellent hacking skills that she has now. She has some hacking skills, hack people's eyes, hack the camera, so she does not know that he is there, that she is there, rather. Kidnaps Serrano, goes to a cafe, and they begin to talk about Serrano genomics, micromachines, and the Mirai vaccine. And one of the big discussions was why Serrano didn't come forward 6 years ago regarding why micromachines were not an effective treatment, for cyberbrain sclerosis, and why the Mirai vaccine was denied. And that's when they also get on the topic of, he's talking about something like, he has invested interest in the micromachines. He was part of the board there, and he wanted his stocks to go up. He wanted to profit from the micromachines. It is all about profit and greed. During this conversation, it's also about the blackmail regarding his company, and it turned out to be, they actually reveal it, Secretary General Yakushima, which is responsible. Now, you don't see this guy at all. Honestly, he's really not a main character at all. You see him like one time in the entire series, like at the very end on like the final episode. Okay? He's really not important, but what's revealed is that he is the one who is responsible for the blackmail of these micromachine companies. That is what Serrano ends up telling the Major, disguised as the Laughing Man. Okay? And that's because he was using the Laughing Man incident that happened to his advantage to profit off of. He was essentially using the Laughing Man logo, using the Laughing Man incident, and blaming it on the Laughing Man when it was actually him doing it. This Yakushima guy. So here's where things get crazy now, okay? After that incident, Serrano is taken into custody, and all this time you think it's the Laughing Man, and then you see the Laughing Man walking down the street, take off the hood. It's actually the Major. Okay? Now, during this time, that Yakushima guy who blackmailed the companies actually leaks the footage and leaks the information about Section 9 kidnapping Serrano. Now, this is very dangerous because now they are pretty much charged with the kidnapping of Serrano, and then the public thinks that Section 9 was involved with the Laughing Man incident 6 years ago, and that they are the ones who are solely responsible for this whole affair that happened. So that is what Yakushima does. So Aramaki, which is the head of Section 9, he goes to the Prime Minister of Japan and says, you have to take Yakushima into custody here. But that is when they realize that this information has been leaked by Yakushima. And the Prime Minister, being a politician, he's... Alright, I ended up talking so long that my camera shut off here. Anyway, so Aramaki goes to the Prime Minister and discusses the situation there. And then the Prime Minister is like, no, let's wait until after the election. I don't want to cause any chaos during the election. Okay? Typical politician. So instead, in order for the Prime Minister to look good, he pretty much orders Section 9 to be terminated. And Aramaki ends up agreeing to this because he has a different plan here, and he knows that the members of Section 9 can end up surviving this. So Prime Minister says, let's have Section 9, completely disbanded, and he sends the Umibozu to come and kill him, which are these very high-level people here who are very good at their job, completely destroy the Section 9 building, try to kill them, all the members, end up capturing all of the members. And it's pretty crazy. Okay, all the stuff that ends up going down, because at the next to last episode, Bato and the Major end up escaping, or what it seems like they escaped. She's boarding the plane, then her head gets blown off. But it turned out to just be a remote control body she was using. So it wasn't actually her. So that was the main thing that happened here. So months go by, okay? For the final episode, a few months later, is what happens. And Togusa, just feels so alone. He feels abandoned by, Aramaki. It's like, did he just let us, did he just throw us to the wolves? Did he just abandon us? And he ends up actually finding the members of Section 9, going back to them, and that is when, they were pretty much, they're doing their thing in secret again, because all of the criminal information about them was falsified, essentially. They were actually released, and the criminal information about them was falsified, which is interesting. And so then, Aramaki's plan for this whole thing is he knew that his team members would survive and regroup, but he didn't mention anything to them, except for probably the Major. And his actual plan was for Section 9 to look like the bad guys in this situation, so that the public prosecutors could end up arresting Yakushima, which is who did the blackmail. So all of that happened. He got to see justice serve Yakushima. Got the truth out about Serrano genomics, all that sort of stuff. At the very end, Aramaki tries to recruit the true Laughing Man, Aoi, who was sitting in this library. He reads physical media at this day and age, but he declines because he wants to read his physical books. He likes his physical books, okay? And he had mentioned that how he actually came to learn about this whole incident, because he actually stumbled across an email, a blackmail email that was sent to Serrano Genomics many years ago, during the original Laughing Man incident, before he carried out any of his actions. He found an email that was saying that talking about the effectiveness of micro machines versus the vaccine. And that's where he learned about it. And he's like, something has to be done. Something has to be done. So he's a fighter for justice here. He wants the truth to come out. He wants people to know the truth. So he fought for that so that the truth could come out. And then, here's where it gets interesting. If you remember earlier, okay, this is interesting. So at the very, very end, the last scene you see is Serrano going back to his car. He, pulls up the handle to his car, and you hear and it's like the car explodes, and you see this man walking away, smiling. I forget what his exact quotes are, but this man is the same man that killed the scapegoat Laughing Man way earlier in the show, Nanao A, and is the same man that Togusa spoke with during episode 4 about the interceptors, and he was part of the police investigation force. Again, I don't know what that means exactly, because it is the same guy. You see him 3 times in the entire show. You really wouldn't remember him, but there he is. So that is the whole story of this. Very complex, very long. I know it took a long time. But I even had to have notes if you couldn't tell. So this is one of my favorite series. I love this series. It's really good. I do recommend it if that just went all over your head. There you go. Watch it. I think it can go over your head. I mean, especially back in the day, like back when I was a kid watching it, I had no idea what they were talking about because I didn't know anything about politics and all this sort of stuff, but it makes a lot of sense to me now, especially the fact that I wrote it down, I understand the scandal that happened. I understand the blackmail incident and what's going on, because this is actually real life politics, what they do. Okay, and it's very similar to the events today, as I mentioned. So all this similar stuff. So I do recommend it. The music is great. The animation style is great. I love the voice acting. So that's going to do it for my review of this. Very long, but here we go. Okay. And if you want to watch that crazy episode I mentioned, Jungle Cruise, about the t-shirts, there you go. Watch it on Adult Swim. The only thing that Adult Swim doesn't have is at the very end of each episode, after the credits, there's a little section with Tachkomatic days, which I didn't even mention them. These are the Tachkomas, these little blue things. Okay, these little think tanks, which is pretty much what you play as in the first game, except for you play as a red one called a Fuchikoma. But the Tachkomas really don't play a super significant role in the anime for the most part, and they are disbanded. They are sent back to the lab because they start to develop like individuality. They start to think of themselves as unique people here with a ghost. Okay, that is where the term comes from, ghost in the shell. A ghost is like your spirit, your soul inside of a shell, a physical body, which in this case is cyberized, a prosthetic body. So Tachikomas are sent back to the lab, and then that's during, pretty much the standalone episodes. And then during a complex episode, it actually ends up saving Bato, or as they call him, Mr. Bato. So I like that. It's cool. So that is season 1. So I will talk about season 2 another time. I will review that. And yeah, you all take care. Hopefully you enjoyed this. And it was very long. You take care now. Bye-bye.